Hey traders, Cory Mitchell at TradeThatSwing.com, and this is a look at some swing trades that are out there. This list hadn't been updated in quite a while, so I'm updating it on May 6th. There's some interesting earning plays recently, and this is just looking at the last several days. I'll probably do a more thorough look back through the last couple weeks, and there may be some setups forming right now, but these are ones that could potentially set up and that are looking pretty good. We'll go through some tater setups. We'll see what that one is, as well as chart patterns. So let's get to it. You can see the top of the list, I have the earnings watch list. These are stocks that have already had earnings. They've had a nice pop, and we're basically waiting for a pullback, some small little candles, and then once the price starts moving up, that's when we enter price stop loss goes below those little candles, keeping our risk low, and we can get some potentially explosive moves as the price follows through. So I have an article on it here. It's basically called earnings drift, where you get this positive effect after a big earnings, and it can last months. Not all the time, but sometimes. And this is also covered in depth in the Complete Method Stock Swing Trading course. So let's get to these. So TDUP, big pop on earnings, and just notice how strong this stock has been. If you follow the markets, the S&P is below its yearly high. This is way above its high, just moving up, and this was about a 47% move up approximately from the prior close. Huge increase in volume on this move up, so we'd be waiting for a little pullback and potentially a continuation. Super strong. Let's just look at SPY to compare. Vastly different chart. Let's move on to the next one. HIMS. Big move up on earnings. So earnings came out Monday night, and Tuesday we have this nice move up. You can see it gap down a little bit, but even from the prior close, we're still up about 19%. Closes right near the high. Nice increase on volume. Wait for the pullback. CorMedix. In the prior close, up about 25%, closes right near the high. A little bit of an increase on volume. Coming in, if we zoom in here, volume a little bit still elevated from the prior, but typical volume kind of around 1.5, I would say, and we got 4.9, so we're still looking at about 3 times typical volume on that pop. So that one pretty good as well. One little note, we want the pullback. If we get a pullback and it goes all the way back here, not good. We want a pullback that kind of stalls out maybe right around here. It can even move sideways from here. And yeah, ideally that volume drops off, little candles, and then once we start moving and making higher candle highs, so kind of like we had this move up here, price pulls back, notice these little candles here, and then here you make a higher candle high. So it's moving above these prior candle highs. That's the type of situation we want again. So something like this, sharp move up, stalls out, and then you start moving up. So we want to see that again. Same thing, pullback started, nice pop. Same thing, strong pop. This one closes a little bit off the highs, but it's still in the upper half. Ideally, we want this in the upper third of the candle. I would say that's pretty close to being in the upper third. So a little bit of selling in the close, but that's okay. Nice volume increase. What was the overall rally on that? Yeah, about 18%. This one was a little weird. I kept it on, but so we had earnings Friday night, which is this night. but the jump occurred before earnings. So either way, strong move. We have the earnings in there. Big jump on Tuesday in volume, which is a couple days after the earnings. So maybe something went on here. TradingView might have the wrong earnings date or something, but either way, we do have this strong pop. Because it's already a little clustered up in here and we have a bit of a mess up, again, I'd want to see very small pullback, tight candles. But overall, pretty strong, moving back up to its highs. Very nice. Little bit of a volume increase and sharp move. Not a lot of volume increase, and I did note that as a bit of a flag, but I also noticed this is a newer company, likely not very well followed, and that could have something to do with it flying under the radar a little bit perhaps. But nice jump up about 12.5%, closing near the day high. And another one to watch for. Let's go to the Tater. So this is more of an automated type strategy. This can be customized per stock, but as a default, it's basically 1.5 times a 6-period average true range, and it's just following the price. So when you go from red to green, you have a trade. When you go from red to green to red, you're exiting a long trade. And so here would be an entry into a up trade, and we would have got an exit right there when it closes below. So now that we've closed below it, we can see the indicators turned red. We're basically waiting for price to move back above it to signal us into another trade. So the idea of this is that you sometimes get huge wins when the price really has a big run, but it's a lot of just capturing chunks of the trend. What else do we got in there? Oh, PLTR. That one's been getting a lot of buzz lately just because of how strong it has been, moving right back to prior highs. And you can see it's just dropped below the line. So we're in a little pullback phase. We're looking for the price to move back up. You can see these settings sometimes getting out on little pullbacks. So there is the option to change that if you wanted it a little less sensitive. You could change it to 2.5, 3.5, or change how many periods are being included. It's going to change things up. I wouldn't recommend changing it drastically for each stock, but usually this is kind of my world between about 1.5 and 2.5. And sometimes, if price gets really flat, it will give an exit signal. But hey, nothing's perfect. But let's put it back to kind of our default. The last one we're going to look at is a bit weird, but I wanted to throw it on here. So you can see price moves below this line, huge. This was an earnings day. But it managed to close above the line, so it didn't flip it. So you'd think this would actually have turned red, and the red line would be down here or something. But, above. It's just, so it just kind of barely got, but we had this big drop. So I find this kind of interesting. Like, if we're not too far off what the original entry signal was. The original entry signal would have been like right there. We're a little bit above that now. We've dropped below. We've basically moved back above the line all within a day. So it's kind of an interesting setup. I'm not sure if I would trade this or not. I'd have to think maybe what do I want to see next. I was thinking maybe if I see some small candles here, or maybe it continues to move up and then we have a little pullback and it holds this little gap area here, then maybe I'd look at getting in. But overall, it's been, you know, kind of strong, holding up pretty well. But yeah, I'd probably wait for a clearer signal than what we have. Basically, if we close down here, then we'll get the red and we'll be back to normal signals. But this was just kind of an interesting one because it did go way below the line, but didn't close. Not many chart pattern type setups because I look for contractions, cup and handles, rounded bottoms, even some channels, but because the indexes have gone pretty much vertical to the upside recently, and a lot of stocks have too, they have not had time to coil up or form contraction type patterns. We do have some rounded bottom type patterns. And typically I like these. We can look at them, you know, if price has been selling off, you will get bottoms at bottoms where they turn and you start an uptrend. But we can also get them after you've had a vertical rise and then the price slowly has a pullback and then it starts turning back to the upside. So that's pretty much what these ones are. So you can see next strong rise, we have the drop, move up, drop, which doesn't make much progress, move back up to near prior highs, and then we start seeing these rising lows. And so looking at this, and then now we have a higher swing high above this one. So we just have that transition from lower swing highs, lower swing lows to higher swing highs, higher swing lows. So basically a shift in and around here where it goes from down to up. And then we start looking for the entries. So if we get more of a pop, then I think this would probably be a pretty interesting area, like basically right where we're at now. But I want to see the confirmation of the pop and then get in on the next pullback. If we pull back from here, then I think kind of just above this trend line, you know, in this area is an interesting point for an entry. UTI. Pretty well formed here. You can see that transition a little bit better where it's basically zoop, moving down, and then all of a sudden you're going zoop. So it's almost like channel down to channel up as we have this bottoming and shift to the upside. And yeah, same kind of thing. If we get a little pullback, you know, somewhere in here is interesting for a long. If we get a nice bigger rise, then the next pullback, maybe it comes in here, or it's always a dynamic situation looking at where to potentially get in on the pullbacks. But we're starting to see that shift. Excuse me. So now we're basically looking for the pullback to get in. I like waiting for the pullback because it gives me a lower risk. Entering up here, yeah, I gotta then put my stop loss below here or something, whereas if I wait for the pullback, I know exactly. So this could have been an entry here because we did have the shift up, the pullback, the move up. So this was a little possible entry in there with a stop loss just below. So we still could use that entry, kind of entering right around where this line is, above this little cluster of candles, stop loss below those candles. We have had some volatility recently, so could get a little shakeout in here, but overall we see that shift to the upside. What else do we got? Oh yeah, one more on the Canadian, just as an example. Not quite as nice as the other ones, a little more condensed, but you can see this drop, move up, drop to a new low, barely makes any progress before another pop up, little bit higher swing low, and then we have a shift to a higher swing high. So to me, you know, this is a very kind of shallowy bottom, but we have this higher swing high, so, and we're in the pullback, and this to me looks about where we'd want this to end. It could maybe go a cent or two lower, but if we start getting down toward 50 cents, you know, we're basically right back at that low. So we kind of have this area where we potentially buy the pullback, and if it drops much more, we get out because the pattern's invalidated. We want to see that higher swing highs, higher swing lows. So a little interesting. It can be somewhat explosive, these, you know, low priced stocks. Yeah, so worth just kind of, yeah, keeping an eye on this one as well. So that's the list. I'll try to keep this updated going forward. As I mentioned, earnings play is probably most interesting to me, but these are also have been strong recently, especially these two. This one's a little bit of a, probably have to wait for more clarification on that one. And these, some pretty good rounded bottom type patterns, even this one. And so yeah, a few things to watch out there. There's a lot to watch out there, and this is just kind of a sampling based on a few of the strategies I trade. So happy trading out there.